Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Otsego City Council meeting. Tonight is Monday, September 12th. Auditor, can you have the record show that our city attorney, our city planner, our city engineer, all council members are present, along with our assistant city administrator and our administrator. At this time, I'll ask you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our first item of business this evening is the open forum. This is the portion where you can come to the podium, state your name and address, and limit comments to 5 minutes or less. If anyone would like to speak online, Dan and Adam, you're watching that also. Right, we will close the open forum and move on to consider our agenda for approval. Does anyone have anything that they would like to add or delete at this time? Then we need a motion.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I'll move to approve the agenda as written.
My second.
Motion by Brittany, seconded by Jeff. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to item 3, our consent agenda. The motion would be in order.
Madam Mayor?
Ms. Brittany.
I'll move to approve the agenda as the consent agenda is written.
My second.
Motion by Brittany, seconded by Jeff. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to item 4.1 under our public hearing, it's an assessment for our 2022 street renewal projects at Walsh Estates and O'Day Acres. I will presenting this evening as our city engineer and Adam, our city administrator.
Go ahead first, Rob.
All right, so this year's project was located in Walsh Estates and O'Day Acres and was a street improvement project, which was a reclaim, shape, and pave. The next slide shows
Sorry.
the project location.
There it is.
There it is. So it's bound in the red. There's a couple of lots, that access other streets that weren't accessible, and then also one that's owned by the city of Otsego. Otherwise, all the lots within red there are assessed. So before, this was a pretty old piece of pavement, 1978, and overlaid in 1999. So it was 23 years old, had a very poor PCI, 33 out of 100. Was showing its age with block thermal and alligator cracking. O'Day Acres, although newer, also had a pretty poor pavement condition index, and we included it because it was in that area. And while we're there, we wanted to get that area up to par with the neighborhood so that we wouldn't have to come in with a small project later on. And that one we updated with curb and gutter. It was asphalt curb, which did not meet the standard specifications for the city of Otsego at this time. And I got a few photos of how it looked before. You can see the amount of cracking that was within those streets. And the inability to clear all the snow because of some roughing along that area. So again, it was full depth reclaim. We replaced all the center line culverts. Then we reshaped it, placed 3.5 inches of bituminous 2 lifts, then shouldered the gravelled the shoulders. And then, so this is 10 feet wide with 1 foot gravel shoulders. Before, the previous project had pavement right to the edge, and then we would notice edge cracking. So we're looking at this being better for it with the gravel shoulders to hold the sides for errant cars that do drive over the edge, or the school buses or garbage trucks that tend to ride the edge. So the Otsego O'Day Acres, although it was changed to 28 feet with curb and gutter. That's because it already had storm sewer in place. So you can see a picture of how O'Day Acres turned out right after they had done some of the spray on seeding. And then there's some photos of Wallish Estates with gravel shouldering. So it was a pretty good improvement for that area, and the assessment, we're in the 8th year. This is the 3rd year of our new assessment policy, but 8th year of the street renewal plan. And you know, that this was on our capital improvement plan, and total project costs were right in line with what we had estimated at 766,000. So the portion that would be assessed is $114,660, and the city's portion is $651,666.07, or whatever wasn't covered by the assessment. So each property was assessed equal amounts of $1,092, and that is adjusted annually with the ENR index to keep up with prices. So we'll have a project for you in our CIP coming up for the next 10 years. And they're all based on pavement condition index at this point. So you'll see those projects when we go through in a few weeks. So in your packet, we have the assessment roll of everybody getting the 1,092. And we're looking for a resolution approving the assessment roll.
Adam, do you have anything?
I don't have much to add to that. Other than, the action would be to conduct a public hearing, receive comment, and then adopt the assessment roll if you so choose.
So at this time, we will open a public hearing in regards to the 2022 street renewal project for Walsh Estates and O'Day Acres. This is the time where you can come to the podium, state your name and address, and limit comments to 5 minutes or less. Do we have anyone here to speak in regards to the assessment? I will ask one more time. Any comments? Seeing no one in the audience in regards to this, we will close the public hearing and bring it back up to council for consideration and adoption. Tom?
Madam Mayor, given that there was no public comment, I'm assuming you guys did a pretty darn good job.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Brittany.
I did just have one question. So the few punch items that have not been completed. I was just curious what those.
Yeah, so there, it's mainly has to do with, I've got a few phone calls from a very few residents, probably less than 5, regarding seeding or topsoil in certain areas of the project. So we'll take a look at that and get the contractor out there if we see the need for that.
Doesn't sound like too much.
Is there any for anybody else? Otherwise, a motion will be in order.
Madam Mayor, I'd
Yes, Joe.
like to make a motion.
Okay.
Make a motion to adopt resolution 2022-70, adopting an assessment.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Tina. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Good job.
Moving on to item 5.1, it's a series 2022 bond issuance. We have Jessica with Northland Securities here and Adam.
We do. So I'll just kind of brief what's in your packet and then let Jessica do all the detail talking. So in your packet is a municipal service advisory agreement that we enter into to go out to sale for a bond with Northland Securities. And there's a resolution authorizing the competitive sale of that bond. And then also lastly, there is a motion to call for a special meeting, which we can get to kind of at the end of this, but at this time, I'll let Jessica talk to the council about this item.
Mayor, council, good evening again. Okay, so as Adam mentioned, a few items in your packet tonight related to the issuance and sale of $26,155,000 in general obligation temporary sewer revenue bonds. Should the council consider to or continue to move forward with the sale here, this would be considered Series 2022A for the city. I'm just getting to that resolution quickly. My computer fell asleep when we were in the last meeting. So I'm going to run through the finance plan that's in your packet tonight. Just kind of going over some of the high level detail that you'll see on the executive summary, which is found on page 1. So proceeds here would be used to fund construction for the West Wastewater Treatment Facility. There is a delay in funding from the Public Facilities Authority, being that the bonding bill was not passed. And being that the project is getting underway and the city is going to need some funds on hand to manage that construction project, PFA has suggested that the city seek out temporary financing until PFA is ready to fund the long-term financing for the loan. So in this case, we have reviewed the engineer's estimates in terms of what is likely to be spent over the next year or so. And we're coming up in sort of the neighborhood of 25 to 27 million. So we've kind of split the baby here. We're roughly at 26 million. And we can certainly move off of that number should staff and council decide to do that. But for right now, that's what we're targeting. In terms of the security, the bonds would be a general obligation pledge of the city secured by net revenues from the sewer utility. Long-term financing here is expected to be PFA. We have no reason to believe that that financing would not come through. In terms of the repayment, we are looking at a 24-month term. So we have a single maturity that does mature on November 1 of 2024. We do have a 12-month call feature in here as well. So that if PFA financing does come through with the next round and financing became available next fall, that the city would be able to call these bonds in at that point. We do have interest that is due on the bonds beginning November 1 of 23 and then semi-annually thereafter on May 1 and November 1. In terms of the average coupon or average stated rate on the bonds, we are currently assuming that that will be 3% with a true interest cost of 3.1. Again, as mentioned, for that prepayment option, we do have a 12-month call that is drafted into the preliminary official statement. We will be seeking a rating for the bonds. Our current estimates are assuming that the city's rating of AA+ would stand. The bonds will not be considered bank qualified, but they will be considered tax exempt. The reason for the lack of bank qualification is because it exceeds the $10 million threshold for bank qualified bonds. Looking at doing a public sale here on Tuesday, October 11th, that would take place at 10:30 a.m. And we are seeking direction from the council. What we're targeting currently, being that that is our public sale date that we're looking at, is getting the council together that evening at 5:30. That would be considered a special meeting for the council. For this type of bond, really just a quorum is necessary. So as long as there are 3 members present and of course in favor of the bond issue, we would be able to move forward. We do have the option of sliding this back 1 cycle to align with the meeting on the 24th. The reason that we can't do it on the 10th is because the bond markets are closed that day. So that's why we're looking at trying to get this done as soon as possible, which again would require that special meeting. But certainly if that's not workable for the council, we can look to the next regularly scheduled council meeting. Certainly open to any discussion on that. And then further on in the finance plan, you've just got some additional information. Sources and uses can be found on page 2. The borrowing authority here referencing 475, which is the general borrowing authority, and then statute 444, which covers utilities, security, again, utility revenues from the utility along with the general obligation pledge of the city. And then some additional information related to the financing team. So Northland is proposed to serve as municipal advisor to the city. Bond counsel would be Taft. They have served as bond counsel in the past. And then paying agent would be Northland Trust, which is what we've got listed there. And then your preliminary debt service schedule is rather short. Again, 24-month final maturity here, but that's found on page 4. So you can see the interest that would be due on the bonds beginning November 1 of 2023. And then again, every 6 months after that. And then the pricing schedule is found on page 5. And what this is showing here is that we are assuming that the average rate on the bonds would be 3%. The yield that we're estimating is 2.7. So that would mean that there's some premium that's being received on the bonds. Council's seen this in the past. Premium we're typically using to downsize those bonds at the time of issuance. And then finally, interest rates that we are using are based on current rates, based on a AA+ rating. And then we've added 25 basis points there for a cushion. With that, I will conclude my comments, but I am happy to take any questions that the council may have.
All right. Council questions for Jessica? Tom?
Given that you're planning in here to put the bond out for sale October 11th, is there any way or is there any benefit to trying to do it earlier before the Fed meets next week?
There potentially could be a benefit to doing that. However, we haven't gone through the rating process yet. And that's probably not going to happen for another couple of weeks. So we'd be after the Fed meeting anyway. The other thing that I would just caution you on is that the market is kind of baked in what they're expecting for that meeting on the 21st. So I would imagine that most of that is already in there. And then sometimes you see the market go a little bit haywire right after Fed action happens. And then we may see some correction after that. So at this point, I wouldn't recommend rushing it. If we were to try to move forward as fast as possible, we could potentially be looking at a non-rated issue, but then that interest rate is probably going to be at least 25 basis points higher. I think the city would get some level of credit for the fact that you have an underlying rating of AA+. So the city would be seen as very strong. However, those bonds would be non-rated, and given the size, that may cause some speculation as to, well, why isn't the city getting that rating or seeking out that rating? So this, in trying to line up with council meetings, and I recognize that we are asking for a special meeting, this is essentially the fastest that we thought that we could go in getting that rating as well.
Adam, just a question for you. Given that it's going through the Minnesota Public Facilities Authority and the state revolving fund, the SRF, have they ever done it where it's gone 2 years in a row where we wouldn't be able to get funding? I mean, we weren't able to go through the SRF this year because of the impasse, but have they ever done like 2 years in a row?
Honestly, I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
They have done this before where they haven't had funding from the state appropriations bonding bill.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's gone 2 years in a row.
Okay. I don't think it has, but it could be wrong.
Any other questions or comments?
Madam Mayor, just for Adam, this is coming out of 361 and 602. Correct.
Correct. That's the 361 is where the connection and availability charges go for the sewer system. So they're kind of one and the same for financial reporting.
Tom?
Madam Mayor, unless there's any further questions, I'll make a motion to approve the municipal advisory service agreement between the city of Otsego and Northland Securities, Inc. Do we need to make, just to clarify, do we need to make separate motions or can I make all in one?
You can make it all in one if you choose. You okay with that, Dave? Yeah.
In addition, a motion to approve resolution 2022-71, providing the competitive negotiated sale of GO temporary sewer revenue bonds series 2022A, and a motion to call for a special meeting, city council meeting on October 11th, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. to be held at Prairie Center for discussion and consideration of award of the GO temporary sewer revenue bond series 2022A.
Second.
Motion by Tom, seconded by Tina. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Everyone, make sure on your calendars you have October 11, 5:30.
You had a long night today.
I
Jessica.
know, Jessica's like going home. All right, next item is city council reports and updates. Does anyone have anything? All right. For people out in World Wide Web, we've already been together since 5:30. They don't know that. All right, item 7, staff reports and updates. We'll start with Sabrina.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few updates. Mechanic was on the consent agenda, so we should be having someone join us soon. His name is Matt. And after tomorrow, we should have a better idea of when he'll be starting. Utility billing was closed on Friday. We had a total of 80 applicants, so in the process of reviewing all those and should hopefully have interviews soon to get someone. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, Adam.
Thank you, Mayor. No updates tonight.
All right. Audra.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to let everybody know, the photo contest closed last week and we'll be getting those photos up for voting this week. And you'll also have an opportunity to vote at the Prairie Festival from 10 to 4.
Great, perfect. How many submissions did we get?
I think there are 8 people that submitted and then varying numbers of 1 to 5 photos.
Great.
What's your favorite? Or is that proper?
Well, we can't ask that. People have to vote, Tom. Vote at the festival, she just said. All right. Dave.
I have nothing to report, Mayor.
All right. Dan.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing to report.
Ron.
Thank you, Mary. We're opening bids September 20th for the flashing left-hand turn signals. That finally was approved for that local partnership program with MnDOT. So looking forward to getting that one completed, hopefully before the end of the year. And then also water tower number 4, the driveway pavement will be placed this week. And if you haven't driven by it at night, it is lit up at this point. So you'll probably see some photos in the update from Kurt. He had some photos that he showed. Pretty nice.
So Ron, to that comment, we did have some people on social media this weekend that think it's lit us too much.
Too much.
Too much. Yes.
This is usually how it goes. I do think, I'm not sure for positive, but they might be dimmable because they're LEDs, but I'll have to check with.
If you could check with that, I think we had some residents that had some concerns
Sure.
about that. So
It did look rather well lit.
we're marketing ourselves.
Yeah.
We are. You are in Otsego.
Now you know where we are.
Right. Exactly.
All the airplanes.
It looked like a casino.
Awesome.
No, we don't want to look like that.
As long as they're not red lights, I'm good.
All right. We don't have anyone from Wright County here this evening, so all staff reports and updates are done. Do we have any other information to pass along? Otherwise, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Tom, seconded by Tina. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Thank you all for attending. The rest of the council, we will go back up front. Thank you.
I don't know. If we have- It's just gonna-
It was making a little bit of chatter, Audra. Well, maybe it's the microphones. I don't know. You could hear it.
No, it's the speaker.
I can.
No,
hear.
now it's the speaker.